Hi, welcome to COVID Chat with me, Dr. Siouxsie Wiles. It is the Friday, formal Friday, the 3rd of April. And yeah, so COVID Chat is the name that we're sticking with. We're going to be here Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays at 4:10. It's hopefully the time we're going to stick with. And we're really here just to do a bit of a sort of a sciencey chat about COVID-19 and to answer your questions. We won't get to all of them, but we will certainly try and answer some. Joining me is Damien Christie. Say hi, Damien. Oh, we don't know where Damien's gone.
Oh, can you not hear me?
Let's get...
Okay. You got me? Okay.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you.
All right. Okay. I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah, formal Friday. I thought we'd give it a go. Maybe not every Friday, but we'll do what we can. I just wanted to let people know that
I'm wearing my bling.
we've got... I see it. We've got over 100 questions overnight on the email address. If you want to add to that pile, then by all means add to that. That's nzcovid@gmail.com. We can't get through them all, and we're going to try and stick to questions. We've got a lot of questions very specifically about, I had this particular complaint, then I had this, then I saw my doctor, then I did this. We can't get to everyone's individual problems, so we're going to try and answer questions that are of general use to most people, but we'll do whatever we can to get through them, and we'll be doing that a little bit later in the show. First of all, Siouxsie, shall we have, we're also going to be looking at masks today. That's our big topic. Lots of questions about masks. But first, Siouxsie, should we have a bit of a roundup of what's been going on?
Yeah, so let's look at what's happened in New Zealand today. The latest announcement of cases. So we are up now at 868 cases today. There were 71 cases announced today by the Director General of Health on our next graph. So we can see that that's slightly down from yesterday. But again, you know, expecting numbers to keep like this for a little while longer yet. I guess the important thing to say is that we're also recording total cases, which is the number of confirmed cases, which is people who have tested positive for the virus, as well as those that are probable cases, so that they haven't tested positive, but the doctors are pretty sure that it looks like COVID-19. So while those are our cases, it's been a bit of a sad day globally. If we take a look at the tracker, we are now up at over 1 million cases worldwide. And remember, this is likely to be quite an underestimate because there will be lots of countries that aren't testing very extensively or aren't testing at all. So yeah, and over 50,000 deaths, which again will be a massive underestimate, I think. Anyway, so let's get on with today's topic, which is face masks. Everybody has been asking about face masks. Should they be wearing a face mask when out in public? So the answer is complicated, as it always is. So what I want to focus on is us as members of the public, not as healthcare workers. So the advice for healthcare workers is very different. So the reason you'll see this sort of coming up quite a lot now is partly on social media. There was a little graph that did the rounds that showed the numbers of cases in countries, in lots of different countries, whether kind of these countries are wearing masks, which had lower numbers of cases, and these countries don't wear masks. Saying we should all be wearing masks. And the thing that's actually a bit misleading about that graph is that those countries where people have been wearing masks have also been doing a huge amount of other things. So they acted really fast, did intense contact tracing, quarantine, all sorts of things. So it's really unclear whether masks was the thing that differentiates these countries. In fact, I would say it's definitely not the only thing that differentiates them. But so I guess what I want to talk about is a little bit about the science behind wearing a mask and why you would wear a mask. So I guess if people might be thinking what's the reason that they're wearing a mask? And so the first reason I think is those people go, I don't want to catch COVID-19, so I'm going to wear a mask because that will protect me. And then the other people who might go, oh, I've heard that people can spread the virus where, you know, before they know they have it. So I would like to wear a mask to stop me from being that person. Okay. So I guess the first thing to quickly cover is that there are different kinds of masks. So the ones that you will have most heard about are surgical masks and N95s. So surgical masks are the ones that you will have seen kind of surgeons wear. So they are these sort of loose fitting masks. They fit over your nose and your mouth and your chin. And they're really to protect the wearer from things like sprays and splashes, but they also protect so for example, in surgery, they would protect a patient from any, respiratory secretions coming from their surgeon or their healthcare workers. So that's kind of one of their primary uses. N95s, though, are something quite different. So they are a mask that are meant to fit really tightly, snugly around the face. In fact, those people who have to wear them, you have to have a mask fitting because some people have got quite skinny chins and so they don't fit. And if you have any facial hair, they will not form a really good seal. So that's also why you might have heard some people being asked to shave off their beards if they're going to wear these masks. Anyway, so the good thing about these masks is they form this tight seal, and so that then prevents any particles from sort of leaking in the sides, which the surgical masks don't do. But they also are made of a material that blocks out lots and lots of very small particles, including bacteria and viruses. Okay, so it's very clear then that a N95 mask will work very well for preventing you from catching things. But basically a surgical mask is not really made of the right sort of material or anything like that. All right, but so N95s are the way to go, but the point is that they are really needed by people who are actually caring for, sick people, basically, with people with COVID-19. And so in lots of countries, they really don't want the general public wearing these things because that's going to mean that they're not available for healthcare workers. So most of the people out in the public are wearing surgical masks. So I guess what we need to look at is what is the evidence that wearing a surgical mask is of any use. And so just over the last few days, there's been published a review of trial data looking at influenza, so another sort of droplet spread virus, saying, did masks help in stopping the transmission of this virus? And overall, the picture is a bit gloomy. Actually, no, they didn't. And there weren't huge numbers of really good trials, actually. So what it looks like is there's actually a lot more science needed to be done in this area. But there was another review published a few years ago that looked at SARS. And so it was looking at small trials that were done during the SARS epidemic, so over a decade ago. And some of them did find an effect of wearing masks. And overall, when they took all of these studies together, they reckon that about 1 infection was saved for every 6 people who were wearing a mask. So the question should be then, should we all be wearing masks? So I've been reluctant to recommend everybody wear a mask, partly from we need them to be available to those who actually need to wear them because they are more at risk of picking them up. But also because lots of people are not used to wearing a mask. And so you have to put them on in a very specific way to ensure that you don't contaminate them. And you also have to take them off in a specific way so that you don't contaminate them. And you shouldn't touch them at all. So if you touch them, then that means that you have to go and take it off and wash your hands and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen people wear surgical masks and they fiddle with them a lot. So the real worry is that if you have virus in your hands and you've picked it up from somewhere and then you're wearing a mask and you fiddle with your face, that will basically be a route of transmission for you, and you think you're wearing it to protect yourself. Also, I really worry that people will be wearing it thinking they're protected and then they won't do the regular washing of hands and things like that. So those are really sort of important considerations for why I haven't been recommending them. But you'll see now, so I guess the point is, so they might not protect you from picking up the virus, but it's not unheard of, I guess, that they would stop you if you had the virus from delivering all your droplets everywhere. So they could, in theory, help in transmission in that way. So that's, I think, why we're now seeing this sort of bigger call for people to be wearing masks in public, because there reaches this point where in lots of countries now, they have this exponential spread of the virus, and lots of countries are not doing lockdowns, so people are going about their everyday business. So that if everybody wore a mask, then the chances are that those people who are actually incubating the virus or have the virus and shedding it and don't realize would be a person wearing the mask. So that should help in breaking down transmission. But again, it's all about, do you have those masks available? Do you know how to wear them properly? And are you in this scenario where there's potentially lots of people infected who don't realize it? So if you feel more comfortable wearing a mask out in public, I mean, there's also something to be said, I guess, for when everybody wears a mask, then there's no stigma attached because anybody could be infected. So I think that's sort of why some of these calls are coming to for people to wear a mask. I don't think it's necessary here in New Zealand. I still think everyone should be washing their hands and doing things like that. But if you're worried and you have masks that are not going to be needed by somebody else, then go and watch. There's some great videos on the WHO's website on how to put a mask on and off properly. Then go for it. But still, I don't think it's a big deal here, but it is becoming a bigger deal in other countries, and that's why you're going to see recommendations in other countries for people to be wearing masks. So that's masks. There's probably going to be some more questions about it, but Damien, shall we do some viewers' questions?
Absolutely, that's great. So thank you, Siouxsie. One question that we did get through, and we do have a little graphic for this I found really interesting. If you can't find a mask, you do want to wear a mask, what materials can you use at home to make your own mask? And what's the most effective? So obviously the surgical masks up there. Vacuum cleaner bags, really, really effective against particles, dish towels, t-shirts, pillowcases. What the study did find that I read was that vacuum cleaner bags, while they're effective, you don't really want to wear them because they're not that comfortable, obviously cutting them out and putting them on. So people will wear a pillowcase or a t-shirt for a lot longer than a vacuum cleaner bag. But there it is. So your tea towel might be the way to go.
Again, make sure that you are washing your hands, and it's about protecting others, not protecting yourself.
Yeah. Here's a question now. I've only found that, weirdly, considering we've been doing the show now and been talking about this for a couple of weeks, this is only a question that I discovered the answer to when I was with my children watching a Nickelodeon special on YouTube about COVID-19 aimed at kids, which is, where does the name COVID-19 come from? Can you answer that one?
Great question. Yeah, so it's the name of the disease. So it stands for coronavirus disease 2019, so the year that it emerged. And the virus itself is a coronavirus known as SARS-CoV-2.
There you go. Now, this is something a lot more serious, and I've heard this a number of places. It's almost becoming a bit of a cut and paste on Facebook. I've heard it from Mike and Shay and Amy. Should we have only isolated elderly people with low immunities, and those that have illnesses that can be majorly affected, so the rest of us can basically have a giant chickenpox party, catch COVID-19, and develop natural immunity, therefore providing herd immunity that way? Is that a good idea, Siouxsie?
I am firmly in the not herd immunity camp, because the vast majority of us are susceptible to this virus. And while it is very true that those who are older and those with underlying health conditions have been the ones who've had the worst time of it, they have not been the only ones that have died now, actually, and they've not been the only ones that have been hospitalized. So if we allowed this to, if we put those people who were likely to have a worse time away somewhere safe, and then allowed it to go through the population, it would still have a catastrophic effect on us. I can't. No. It really,
Because there have been
people would die. Yeah, but
there
people
have
would
been
die,
people,
and
young people, 14. Sorry, both talking here.
yeah,
There have been people 14 years old overseas, no underlying conditions, who have died. People in their 20s, no underlying conditions that they knew of, who have died.
yeah. And you also have to remember, a lot of people need hospitalization and support, right? So some of them end up in intensive care and survive, so that's fine. But if we just allowed this to go through our population, it would actually completely overwhelm our health system, even if not everybody, even if all those vulnerable people were kept aside. And when you have an overwhelmed health system, then those people who have car accidents or who have heart attacks or anything else, it also becomes really difficult to care for them too. So I do not agree with this as a strategy. I think it's inhumane, frankly. And I think much better to have a vaccine or to eliminate it completely.
If you are unfortunate enough to get COVID-19 and recover, do you then have immunity from it? Deborah asks, can you get the virus more than once?
Yeah, so we don't know all this yet. We would hope that you would become immune afterwards, but there are some viruses where your immunity only lasts a short period of time, and then there are others where you're immune for life, and we don't quite know where this one sits yet. And that's because we've not known, known about it for just a few months, really. So all of this sort of stuff is going to come out in the months and years to come.
We've had a number of people, Francis and others, who have said, Katie, who have said they thought they might have got COVID-19 very early on, although not quite sure why or how, but very early on. Is there a way of being able to test to see whether they did and whether they have the antibodies, and can those antibodies be used to help develop a vaccine?
Yeah, so I talked in our last episode about the serology tests. So these are the tests that are looking for antibodies. So once we know that these tests are reliable, then they will presumably be rolled out, and then people could be tested to see if they had antibodies. And if they had antibodies, then that would suggest that they had been exposed, whether that meant that they'd actually had the infection or had a very mild version or an asymptomatic version. And that's something that we'll find out in the future. But at the moment, those tests are still not reliable enough to roll out fully.
One of our emailers said that they went to get a flu vaccine as her and her husband are high risk, and was shocked that the nurse giving the flu vaccine didn't have gloves on. She said she did use alcohol hand wash. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, I don't know why you think she would need to wear gloves. Washing hands, she would have washed her hands beforehand, and if she's using the alcohol wipes, that protects you. So washing hands is better than wearing gloves, frankly, because you wash your hands and you get rid of any virus that way. So it should be fine.
Aline wants to know, hot or cold, does it matter when you're washing your hands? We've done this on our kids show that we did a couple of years back, actually. Soap with soap, hot, cold. What's the way to wash your hands, Siouxsie?
Yeah. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. Just wash your hands and make sure you use soap and do the 20 seconds. So it's absolutely fine. If you don't have hot water, absolutely fine. Just as long as you wash your hands.
Nolene wants to know, we'll have a couple more questions. Are antibacterial wipes effective since this is a virus? And I know this is a big thing of yours, the difference between bacteria and a virus. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So if it only says antibacterial, then no. If it says antiviral, as in it has some kind of disinfectant that works against viruses too, then yay. But no, if it only says antibacterial, then you cannot assume that it will have any effect on a virus.
Last question was actually two-parter here. Paulette wants to know, as do a lot of people, should they be wiping down all the groceries coming into their house? David says that he saw that the virus can live for a month in the fridge.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard about a month in the fridge. So what the
That was
study
that was based on the SARS
done,
virus, apparently, the original SARS.
okay. So the study that has been done with this particular coronavirus was that they could survive 4 hours on copper, 24 hours on cardboard, and 2 to 3 days on plastic and metals. So the point is that there should be very, very little chance of picking up this virus from the supermarket. So, when things get to the supermarket, there should be very little there. The chance would be if somebody had handled something and they happen to have some virus on their hand, whether that would contaminate an object. So it's a possibility. It's not, we can't say it would never happen, but your chances of picking up the virus this way would be very, very, very low. That saying, if you have somebody in your family who is very vulnerable to this infection and would get a very nasty infection, then I don't think it is beyond, I mean, I think it would be good to be cautious. So my mum is in that position. She's very, very vulnerable. And so I've advised them to take precautions. So what they're doing is leaving things for a couple of days before, if somebody delivers some food for them. If it's not something that goes straight in the fridge, they will just leave it for a couple of days before handling it. And if it is something that needs to go in the fridge or it's fruit and vegetables, they'll make sure it gets a wash down. So that's only really necessary for people who are really vulnerable, for their kind of underlying health issues. For the rest of us, it's absolutely fine. It's all about making sure we keep washing our hands.
Great. Thank you very much, Siouxsie, for that. We will be back here certainly next Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're talking about doing a bonus show on the weekend. You and I need to have a little chat off there about that to work out whether the week that we've all had means that we should all have a rest for a couple of days or what. But we'll let people know via the Facebook page, Aotearoa Science Agency. Thanks to the Science Media Centre for helping us make this all possible. Your questions, again, we'll answer them next time we're here, nzcovid@gmail.com. I thought we'd finish up, Siouxsie. I found a clip of a rather enterprising way of avoiding going to the grocery shop and getting your food deliveries yourself if you've got an animal at home that you can train. And sure, we've got a lot of time to do that. Let's have a look at that. Thanks, Siouxsie. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
This is New Toronto Uber delivery? Yes. I hope they tip you well, buddy. They do.